Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining Riding the Phoenix Part 4, Session 6. I'm going to bring Carolyn up in just a second, but I want to call your attention to the green button just below my face that says Having Trouble. Click here to view on YouTube. And if the video cuts out for you at any moment and you've tried refreshing your screen, you can try viewing this on YouTube and you might have better luck. Alternatively, if you go to the Help button on the top right, and then click that and then click Enable Compatibility Mode. That will also sometimes solve internet bandwidth issues. So without further ado, here's Carolyn, and enjoy tonight's class.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to session 6. Really, it is. I thought it was 5, but it's 6. I've even lost track. Tonight, we're going to go into healing, and this is really the practical side of mystical power and love, the life force, and how to make this topic applicable to you is to put it in your body, is to put it in your cell tissue, is to talk about how does this actually apply to your everyday blood and bones. And so I'm going to take it into your chakras and take it into matters about health and healing and the micro choices you make every day in your life and how that actually influences the flow of the life force through you and into the whole of your life. And because for me, it was because of my doing readings and the whole track of the last 35 years of my life that I learned this world, that I became so devoted to this world. It was through this, going from being starting out in medical intuition and then progressing through stages that I am going to share briefly with you tonight, to becoming intrigued with healing, with miracles, with the landscape of the mystical realm, which became real to me, which somehow became as real to me as probably physical medicine is to a physician. It didn't happen overnight for me at all. It was a long, gradual process of one question, one discovery, one kind of awakening after another in a world that I didn't even know existed. So it didn't happen overnight, which is why I'm sure that, as I tell you about the power of this thing that I call the life force, this love that's greater than ordinary love. These are just words, and I get that. And it's as frustrating to teach just words as it must be to listen to just words. So maybe if I put it within your body this evening and within the experiences that you're more familiar with, that you can kind of incarnate this just a little bit within mystical logic, so that this universe that I'm introducing to you can begin to feel more real to you. So I wanted to begin by saying I taught years ago that your biography becomes your biology. And that is a principle that I really, really want you to hold in your head as I teach this tonight. The other thing is that for those of you who might be working on something that you're trying to heal, pay extra attention. Pay extra attention as I go through what your physical and energetic and sacred anatomy systems are like, and what triggers the loss of power in you, and where you feel that, and what retrieves that power, and how the sacred anatomy works. Pardon me. I think that I can handle this, but then I get so warm when I start teaching. And one of the things I learned through the years is that when I first started out, and I'm going to just give a small little background about that, but I never included what I now think of as your sacred anatomy, our sacred anatomy, in my analysis of why a person's losing power or their health. I never did. I didn't know that part of ourselves. I did not know or understand the content of the soul the way I do today. Back then, I had a more conventional, dare I say, religious understanding of the soul. Today, I have none of that. All of that's gone. Today, I have a very organic, cosmic, co-creative view of what our soul is, which is how I present it. And as I jump into this crash course of physical and energy and sacred anatomy, I would tell somebody, even if you had no interest in anything in terms of consciousness at all, which is fair enough, you cannot deny that you are living in the age of energy. You cannot deny that. You are probably hooked up to computer systems. I'm talking to you through a computer system. We are communicating through energy right now. And the first thing you do in the morning is link into the energetic network. Everything about our lives has merged with the energetic world. The same thing is true with your physical body. It is merging with your energetic network, with your personal energetic network. So it's in your best interest to understand how your personal energetic network works, just like you want to understand how your computer network works. Just think of it that way. And think of it in terms of your chakras, as I'm sure that most of you know that word by now. I don't like the word. I prefer to think that we have energetic databases in our energetic system, and they work like microcomputers. And every single center in our energy field has its own micro database. And what is so extraordinary is the amount of data that's locked in these databases, and what qualifies as data, what actually qualifies as data. So I'm going to hit a pause button here. And the intent of tonight is to reach the place in this lecture where the power of love is I want to introduce that to you as the power that has the authority to heal what cannot be healed by the mind. And in order to get to that, I want to build on how I got to that, because it would not have made sense to me, and didn't make sense to me early on when I was a baby medical intuitive. I could not have comprehended it, which is probably why I didn't pick it up. I didn't have the consciousness to grasp it. And when I think back, I was not able to appreciate the truth of that. So I get how people don't appreciate the truth of it, because I couldn't 35 years. I couldn't. So you have this energy field. Now, I want you to picture, I use it as my icon all the time, and I don't have anything here with that, but I always picture, energy coming in through the top of your head, and then I draw a little sphere, and then you're a resident in the sphere. When you have energy coming in through the top of your head, and you're like in a bubble, and that really is a good way for you to imagine that you are. And that every choice you make, every decision, every interaction, everything, every single thing is something that is an exchange of your power. Absolutely everything. Absolutely everything. And I always use this example, and I'll say to people, do you want my pen? Have you been sitting there craving my pen? And of course, you're going to say, what's she talking about? Which is a perfect thing that I want you to memorize. I want you to memorize what it is like to not want something, to not crave something, to have no feeling about something at all, because that's the ideal response to something, where no part of your energy is responding to something. Nothing. You feel nothing. It has no power. Whether I put the pen here or here, you're like, you don't even notice. It has no power over you at all. And Buddha would say to you, what is the difference between whether she was holding a pen or a diamond or your will, or what would be the difference? Because Buddha would say it's really all an illusion. It's just that you give your power to that object. It has more authority over you. And the moment somebody holds up something that for you has more power, all your energy, because of the way you think, gravitates toward that object, that piece of paper, that substance. And it triggers your life force. And your life force begins to activate your appetites and activate emotional responses, psychological responses. It activates your biosphere. And everything begins to gravitate toward that thing. It's because of the narrative in your head. Now, you do have these power centers, and every single one of them has a particular field of gravity that it's kind of in charge of. And here again, I want to hit a pause button. And if we had forever to study this together, what would be absolutely fascinating is to go through this and include the mansions of Teresa and the tree of life and the levels of the music system, the numbers of Pythagoras, and the levels of the universe that are described in holy literature, from the scriptures to Hindu literature to that seem to be duplicated in our structure. That everything is a duplicate of the whole, including our design. What is in one is in the whole. It's such a hugeness. It's such a hugeness that we can't fit it into ourselves. We can't fit it in. It's so huge. And every time a wonderment like this blinks into me, every single time, I am so awestruck that it brings tears to my eyes, and I honestly can't. It's like a mystical experience for me to recognize that we are duplicated in all life. So, our energy system, we are in charge of this. I cannot emphasize that to you enough. That every choice you make, which is why I'm emphasizing choice everywhere, Every choice you make distributes your life force in some way. What we cannot comprehend is that everything qualifies as a choice. Everything, every thought we have, every thought we don't have, every response we have, everything triggers a life response, a spark in our energy field. Every judgment, every this, every that, every wonderment, everything triggers life. We are always generating that. Always, 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 always. We are never not generating it. And the lower level, our first, second, and third chakras, essentially, I don't want to spend too much time going into the details of this, but those, your first, second, and third chakras, think of them like lead, and that these lower parts of your body are really geared toward the external world and all your data in the external world. So if I was doing readings on people, that's where I would, in the first chakra, figure out what kind of family life you came from, what kind of tribe you came from, if there were traumas early on in your youth, the vibrational pattern of that was in the first chakra. Whether or not you were grounded, whether or not you were baptized, whether or not you had any kind of holy ritual of any tradition that welcomed you into your physical form. Whether or not there was a sense of habitus maximus was there. How do I explain? The habits of the heart, the maximum habitus, the maximum habits, the the traditions of the family that you love, that form your character, from which you learn right and wrong, from which you learn to model your character. This is where it is. In Latin, it's called habitus maximus, the maximum habits, those that are only taught by example, not by words, by example. It's too late. By the time someone's 9, 10, or 11, it gets harder and harder. These are the ones a child learns by example, that just gets into them, and they know this is how this is done. This is what's proper. This is what's not. This is, and this is what I learned. What I totally believe, and again, this takes us into the soul, that because the soul is our primary template for who we are, what we are, and for what we need to be human and whole and vital and to feel secure. What do we really need to feel secure? What we need to feel secure in life are those habits of the soul. Those, to see faith in action as a child, to see trust in action, to see love in action. That becomes more of the substance, that becomes more valuable to a human being than anything an adult who's than anything else. Because as a person becomes an adult, those habits flourish and they become character. they become substance. They become true self-esteem. They become the stuff of guidance. They become illumination within. They become a person's light. And anyway, when it's not there, a person feels something's missing. Something's missing. I'm missing something. They can't put their finger on it, but they know something's missing. I'm void of something. There's so much I could say about each chakra. We don't have the time this evening, but I hope I can convey at least this, that our energy field is completely engaged in managing our relationship to the physical world through the first, second, and third chakras. The second has so much to do with creation, acts of creation. It's the part of the body through which we create, through which we give birth. It's also the part of the body that is our fight and flight instinct. So the second chakra in you is very instinctive. So this is where your gut instinct is. So it's the first level of your intuition, and it's gut instinct. So it's not higher intuition, it's gut intuition. So this is where appetites for power reside. Your first chakra, your second, and your third. So this is where the love of power, a sense of power in the physical world really becomes visceral, and it becomes woven into ideas of what you need to survive and what you need for your health. And unconsciously, that survival and health become kind of a partnership here. And so this lower part of your energy system is connected to this. And so it's also connected to, it's got sensors, if you will, to what you crave, in the physical world, to cravings that really can break down your well-being, like drugs, medications, attention, fame, vengeance, you name it. Anything that becomes a craving that causes your power to leave your system and become an obsession. Food, stuff. People are stuffologists. They can't stop buying things. So stuff. And, gambling, obviously addictions, but everybody deals with cravings. Everybody. There's no such thing as a human being that doesn't, because every human being has a second chakra. So you don't get to say, well, I'm not an addict, so I don't know who's she talking about. No, I'm talking about you. This is the part of your body where losing your power over substance or things, or the need for attention, or the need for recognition, or anything that is stronger than you, the need to win, the need to get the last word in. My older brother and I, my late older brother, but we were very close, and we were very close in age as well. We were only 14 months apart, so we were kind of like twins. And So we were always together forever and ever and ever until he decided to die early, which I'll never forgive him for. But um, but when we were kids, uh, and we would kind of have those silly little things that 5, 6, 7, 8-year-olds do. We would always have to, each of us, have the last word. We would always have to have the last nick at each other. And even down to, I can remember sitting in the back seat of the car, and we would both try and sneak that last touch in. We always had to have that last power act. So even as a child, this habit, this craving to get the last thing in, to win, is there. And to the extent that it could drain you of your power. So, and your third chakra, that's just the beginning of the second. The third chakra has so much to do with your self-esteem, with you forming who you are, your sense of self. And we've already talked about self-esteem, but where it is in your anatomy system, where it resides most strongly, is your solar plexus. So if someone, said to you, "Boy, I just, that gray top you're wearing, it's just like, I wouldn't wear that." I could hear that, but where I would feel it is it's a direct hit to your solar plexus, which is why when you'll notice people's body language, when somebody's talking about something vulnerable, they'll cross over like this and they'll protect their solar plexus and etc. So this is your vulnerable spot there. The top part, these 4 chakras, very rapidly, if the first, second, and third are very physical, like lead, and they're very much connected to physical things, relationships, survival, jobs, occupation, sex, everything in the physical world, and all physical survival issues. Your 4th through 7th chakras, another column, so to speak, they're energetic. They're what I have always thought about as the working laboratory of the human energy centers, because this is your emotional territory. This is will, where you make your choices. The 6th is the mental field, and the 7th is a spiritual connection. Emphasis on the word spiritual because it's not the soul. The spirit is like that which runs your energy center. Then you have the 8th, 9th, and 10th chakras, which are impersonal. They're cosmic. They are your archetypal patterns. They have to do with the cosmic laws of your connection to the cosmic laws of the universe and to cosmic patterns. So you have your physical. You have your center, which is your laboratory, where you're always working out emotional issues, psychological, your narratives, how you talk to yourself. This is where all the action is. This is where you're always making decisions before they incarnate into your physical life. And your third column, which is something when I first started out, I didn't even understand. I didn't know anything about. But your third column has to do with the cosmic archetypal patterns, that which, almost like if you could picture yourself before you're born being told the rules of the earth. This is how it is down here. You're going to be assigned a lifetime. You're going to have 12 patterns of power to govern you while you're down there. You're going to have 12 myths of power that will filter into you and kind of help form the way in which you engage with the systems of power that are guiding human evolution. So these are going to assist you, and they're like they'll manage, they'll magnetize the laws for you, and they'll keep cause and effect going, and action and reaction, and the law of sensing, and the law of energy, the law of constant motion, so that things will keep happening, and co-creation will keep happening, so that you will get guided on your way in an organic way. And so you're born with appetites to also create, to be, for example, an artist, to be, some of you might have a very strong judge, a detective, you might have an engineer in you, you might have, strong inclinations to be healers, to be that. These are archetypal patterns, and you had them since you were born. And the appetite to be that is something that you had to follow, because it is you. You was born, and these are contracts for you. Okay, so all of that was something I had to learn gradually. I did not, when I first started out, and this is an important part of this, I think, to share, I really thought that illness was, I would find a stress pattern in the chakra system, and then an illness went with the stress pattern. And the reason I'm going through this is because this is the way most people still think. They still think in mathematics that for every one stress, every one illness, there's got to be one stress, and that's it. And it's as simple as that. There's got to be one reason why I have this. And as the years went by, I learned several things, one of which is there's no such thing as one reason. 2, that coming from the view that reason has to be a negative one, we did something wrong or something like that, and if we could just write it, then everything will be right in the universe, is a child's way of seeing things. And it doesn't account for all kinds of things like karma, or guidance, or that sometimes things happen because they are what we need. So none of that in my early days. I eventually shed what I first believed and became open to a much different view. And one of the great openings to a different point of view was when I entered into woundology, which is an important part of this. Woundology was my realization that life was a constant negotiation of power, that's what healing was, that's what illness was, that's what life was, that everything was always a negotiation of power. I had, up until that point of time, assumed everybody wanted to be healed. I was completely wrong. What I realized was that becoming whole, becoming conscious, becoming filled with light, becoming comfortable with light, and what I now call the life force, was in fact the most frightening thing for people. The most frightening. I had, up until that time, believed that that's what, of course, given an opportunity, why wouldn't everybody heal? Why wouldn't everybody want to be whole and healthy? I could not have been more off base. Now I was really intrigued. Now I was really intrigued, because I thought, why would that be? And then I got into the study of power and us. And now life became the most fascinating thing to study that I'd ever come upon, ever. And that's when I started to look at every single thing we do as a negotiation of power, whether or not we're conscious of it. And that's when I saw how powerful we are. And that's when I began to realize that we are completely unaware of how powerful even one word is. Even one word, even going like that can destroy a person. We are completely unaware of how powerful we are. We diminish our power. We think we're under the, as Buddha would say, illusion that power has to be money. It has to be stuff. It has to be loud. This is lower chakra reasoning. It has to be big. It has to be all of that to be able to be effective and make a change in the world, when in fact, just like in healing, in order to heal illness, it has to be this, it has to be that. When in fact, the more I got into this work, the more I got into it, the more I began to recognize that the littlest amount of light knocked the hell out of that world. The littlest. But it took so much to get to that place. That light was so powerful that the power of love or life force, and I'm talking about cosmic now, not personal. Down here, we deal with personal love and all its machinations and manipulations and blah, 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 blah. The games we play. I'm not going to talk to you if you don't, and blah, 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 blah. And I have one fight. That's it. I'm done with you. And that's how much you call that love. I mean, this is game land. This is game land. This is the kind of force that never turns off. It never turns off. Once it's turned on in you, you can't turn it off. Get that? You can't turn it off. It just is. I brought up people yesterday, Francis of Assisi, Teresa of Avila, the great saints of it. It wouldn't have occurred to them to turn that off. I think of people like Gandhi, or people who truly, the many quiet, holy people who have not become famous, but who have made such differences in the world, or in their own neighborhoods, or in their own lives. Local heroes, for example. And they have a way, they have a current of that, a current, the tiniest current running through them. It would be incomprehensible for them to turn that off. This kind of love gets turned on and off like light switches. I mean, it's because we're trying to figure out down here, how do we work with this? Who do I get to aim this at, and who gets it and who doesn't? Are they right color or maybe not? Are they tall enough? Maybe not. I don't know if they behaved well enough for me to love them, and I don't know. And pout, and I'm not going to talk to you, and this kind of stuff. Here, you get to this level of light, and it just doesn't stop. And even though there are life issues that need to be dealt with, there is what do I say? There's a capacity to embrace the other. Like here, let me give it to you. The word understanding. I love the grace of understanding. The word understanding, when you hear an ordinary mortal use it in the lower levels, so to speak, they would say, you better understand me. I'm trying. Do you understand my point? Do you understand my point? Here, let's use the grace of understanding and how that changes this one word. because every word packs a punch. And with the grace of understanding, it's give me the grace to understand why I am with this person and what gifts do I have that I could help out this moment and help out this person. Help me to understand this person and help me to understand me in this moment and why I'm responding as I do. Which way do you want? The battlefield, where you better understand me. You're not listening to me, or the grace of understanding, where you open the door to listening to each other. That's this love versus that. So, Woundology really opened that up. And what I also recognized was that wounds are big power, big, huge power, not as is wounding others, as is the conscious decision to wound other people. That passing on suffering is something people choose to do, which is why they don't want to heal. Because that is a power that has to get retired. That in deciding I need to get on with my healing, the permission to pass on suffering, to pass on wounds, to abuse others is retired. You are outgrowing it. The excuses that you utilize to engage the dark without having to say, I am now going to engage my dark side to abuse you. Because that's what I feel like doing. Because that's what suits me right now. I'm tired and that's what I want to do. Instead, I'll pull out a wound and say, you don't understand. I'm just so wounded. I saw that it's much easier to stay wounded. But what I also saw was that when someone lives in wounded consciousness, the wear and tear on the psyche, the wear and tear on the emotional tissue, the psychological tissue, leads inevitably to depression, inevitably to anxiety, not the kind that it's a self-chosen prison. It is, and I thought, no wonder there's such an epidemic of depression. No wonder. I mean, this because from a completely different point of view, this exploration into that we are all on together of becoming more conscious, of discovering of inner space, of discovering all that's inside of us, indeed is teaching us about the power of who we are, what we are comprised of, the power of every choice we make, the power of what a word said in anger toward another person feels like. And the only way we really learn that is to have a word said in anger toward us. Whoa, that's how that arrow feels. So we all are going through being wounded and wounding verbally and psychologically. So we get, wow, it doesn't take much to pinch this energy center of mine. One word can get in and my whole bubble is burst. This is a phenomenal amount of power that we have. And the way we are learning that is to feel the power of each other. And one of the sources of that is that we are experiencing the depth and impact of what it is to be wounded at an individual level and at the collective social level. We are now feeling the depth of society wounds, of historic wounds, of social wounds. We are living in woundology consciousness. We are feeling the weight of the collective wound and all who carry part of that wound in them. This is part of what we are going through. And when I hear people say, why don't people just move on from that historic era of the Civil War and slavery, and why don't they just move on and blah blah blah? And I think individuals can't move on from their childhood. What will it take? It will take a whole lot of society to participate in the healing of historic wounds. And it's a mystical healing, a soul healing that has to happen. A mystical transformation, the amount of love at this level that needs to pour in to our world. So let me continue. I started with seriously getting interested in healing because of and into mysticism, because of an experience that I had, which I won't elaborate on too much, but let me just say this, that two things are important. One is that I was, on an autumn afternoon, I was standing in my kitchen, and I was in my late 40s, and it seems like yesterday. Now I'm in my late 60s. I mean, Christ, time goes fast. But anyway, so I was in my kitchen, and I heard this voice. And it was one of those days that was so perfect. It was just perfect. It was a perfect day. It was Friday. Fridays are my favorite day when I'm not traveling. And because I let myself take Friday afternoons off, and I very rarely let myself take any time off, but I did. And I thought I would walk into the village and meet a friend, and we would lollygag and have a cup of coffee, maybe go to the show. And it was just such a perfect day. And I was feeling perfect, and I was feeling healthy. I was feeling blessed. I loved my little townhouse, and everything couldn't have been better and more wonderful and everything. And out of the clear blue, I heard, "You don't have a prayer life." Now, all I can tell you is that was a message that went in here and through here and all the way into the whole of me. And I thought, I had all kinds of thoughts. But I knew that I had just had a messenger, a delivery that was, and contained in that was my deep understanding that my life was going to change. That in fact, I was being told, you're going to need a prayer life. That I was being told that everything you had done up until now is going to stop, and you're going in a different direction. I had intended to write a book on healing and on medical intuition, and gone. And what the next thing that happened was I was obviously on a mystical path from that point on, and lots of little things happened that I'm sure you'd find interesting, but we don't have time to go into. But this is what is important, is that I had one, I now entered into, I crossed the mystical Rubicon. And the important thing I want to share with you, which is actually very difficult for me to share because I can't prove a thing I'm about to tell you, is that the mystical Rubicon is, for me, was the beginning of when small and not so small experiences happened that boggle the mind but make sense to the soul. That boggle the mind but make total sense to some other part of yourself. And that some other part of yourself is a part you think, what is this part of myself that is so comfortable with something that I shouldn't be so comfortable with? The day that I was teaching a class from CMED, and I thought I was going to have a grand mal seizure. I was sitting on the stage, and suddenly, instantly, the room began to go silent. I couldn't hear a thing. I felt like I was going into this dark chamber. I thought things were going to just black out. And I couldn't hear anything, and I froze. I froze on this bar stool that I teach on. Then I heard a voice, and it said, "Daughter, follow me." And I was teaching the work of Teresa of Avila, and I knew it was her. How did I know that? I don't know, but I did. I knew it. I knew it. My mind couldn't get wrapped around this, but the rest of me, no problem. That deeper part, my soul, was completely comfortable with this experience. But my mind was immediately went to, what does this mean for my life? What does this mean for my life? What's going on here? Da 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 da. But my soul, it was as if my soul went, hi, hi. As if my mind thought, I don't want any unexplainable things happening to me. And my soul was like, shut up. This is magnificent. And my mind was like, shut up. My soul was like, shut up. And some part of me. And then what happened was her work downloaded into me as if I was a Teresa of Avila scholar. I taught her all weekend, and everything else I had planned to teach got shelved. And so I was living this mystical experience, and I will tell you that while I was teaching her material, her beautiful entering the interior castle, I was observing myself teaching as well as teaching. I was watching myself and listening to myself teach her material for the first time, listening to it for the first time, as if I had been a scholar. Okay. So now I'm in mystical la-la land while looking like an ordinary mortal, but I'm not. I'm completely in my inside in some other place. Okay, fast forward. Now comes out entering the castle. I give my first workshop on it. And during that workshop, I'm sorry, it wasn't a workshop. I gave my first book tour lecture on it, which was like a workshop. For Teresa, the soul was filled with 7 mansions, like a diamond, like a crystal. And as I was describing it, I was in La La Land. I was so madly in love with her. I was like in La La Land. And everybody in the audience, I must have described it like going to Disney World. And they all said, I want to go. I want to go. I said, you want to go to your interior castle? I want to go. I want to go. So I said, well, I have to lead you on a prayerful meditation. I had over 850 people. Nobody moved. Nobody. So I did this deep prayer meditation into the interior castle. And then when it was done, nobody moved. Afterwards, I had a book signing, and a woman came up from behind, leaned in my ear and said, I just thought you'd want to know I had crippling arthritis. I had it for 20 years. I don't have it anymore. I just want you to know I was healed tonight. And she walked out. I never saw her face. But from that point on, someone healed in every one of these book tour presentations where I did these prayers. And that led me into healing. And that led me into this deeper relationship with what is this power? It was in the middle of that I get this book out of the clear blue. But nothing's out of the clear blue. Now here's my pause button. Yet another one. There is the mind. Your mind wants your life to be organized by logic and laws and rules, and so that you can anticipate what's going to happen, so you don't have surprises and da 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 da. That's the way your lower chakras work, so that you're always thinking of your earth security. You're always thinking of your safety. You're always thinking of, well, how much will this cost? And will I lose my money? And I need you to truly look at the way you think and where your priorities are and how you think and what anchors you. And I just, if I could just snap my fingers, so that and make and so that I could make your energy system appear, so that you could see it, so that you could see your energy system and see it respond to your thoughts and to your fears and to your values and to your emotional life and to that the way you want your reality to be. You might want to imagine that there could be a mystical component, but at the end of the day, whoosh, down you go to where things are controlled and orderly and just like that. Over here, what I was experiencing is that the mystical world provides what you need when you need it. Manna from heaven every day, as it were. And it's as if you become aware that you are being watched and guided, and you always were, only now you know it. Now you know. So I get this book because now what I'm interested in is, never mind why people don't heal. How can I help them to heal? How can I help human beings? And here's the funny thing. Believe it or not, I never wanted to help anybody. I wanted to just be an isolate and write fiction and be left alone. That's what I always, that's how I imagined my life to be. When I was a little girl, that was my ideal. Leave me alone. I want a cottage in some place in New England, and I want to be left alone to write. I'm fundamentally a recluse, and I don't want anybody else's problems at my door, and go away. Now look at me. All right. And now how can I help people heal? I mean, I don't get it. What's a miracle? How can I help people heal? How do I get and so this book arrives, and it was sent to me from Ireland from this gentleman who said, my aunt was an Irish Catholic nun, and she was a translator of documents for Padre Pio. Now, so what does that mean? Well, here's where this is so significant. And that's that in looking at why people don't heal, and now what is it that helps people heal? I am now into the substance of the soul. I'm into the substance of light, which brought me to forgiveness and the struggles people have with forgiveness. And one of the observations I had for quite some time, was that we suffer very differently now. And we do. We suffer very differently than I think people suffered, I'm going to say pre-nuclear age, but even like the 50s and the 60s, that our suffering became more complex as we journeyed more and more into ourselves. And as we journeyed more into ourselves, and we started to take a investigation into our this inner self emerged, and we began to pursue cosmic, mystical questions for what reason was I born? What is my purpose? What is a spiritual path? What's out there? Am I here for something greater than just this job? That people were asking mystical sized questions and unable to process how those answers were unfolding within the soul. They didn't have the mechanism to recognize the answers don't come this way. You're asking a mystical question. You're asking for soul data, and you think it's going to come the way, what is 2 and 2? 2 and 2 is 4, the way intellectual data comes. It is not an intellectual pursuit you're after. You're after a mystical pursuit. You're after light. You're after life force. You're saying to your soul, what are we doing here? For what reason was I given life? Take me down deep. Reveal. You're asking for a mystical act of revelation. Down here, the ego says, what kind of job? What's my career? I want it glamorous. I want to be noticed because I wasn't noticed much, and I want to be humiliated. Remember, I don't want to be humiliated, and I want, like, I only want to work 2 days a week. Did I point that out? So I only want to work 2 days a week because I have lots of socializing to do, and I don't want to work for anyone. Nope. But I want lots of travel and time off, and and lots of glamour. Yeah. And by the way, I'm not sure what it is I actually want to do, but whatever it is, make it meaningful, make it purposeful. There. Answer that. Over here, it's revealed to me the reason you gave me life. Life means you gave me life to care for life. Down here, it's what do I do and how much am I going to get? Over here, we're dealing with the light. Asking a light-filled question without having the receptors creates depression, creates anxiety, because something you've got to get rewired. Okay. So I'm observing all of this, and I'm looking at the role forgiveness plays, because obviously I had seen for so long in my Why People Don't Heal that forgiveness was an issue, that forgiveness was the issue, and people telling me, "Oh, I'm working on forgiveness. I'm working on that. I'm working on it." And then comes in the as I'm tumbling deeper and deeper into true mysticism, this book about Padre Pio. So just because I assume that some of you may not know who he is, let me just say that Pio was a Catholic priest who lived in San Giovanni Rotonda, which is in Italy. He died in 1968, I believe. Pio received the stigmata, which means the wounds of Christ, when he was a brand new priest. I don't know why the year 1906 sticks in my head, but some way back. And he had them for exactly 50 years, and those wounds never stopped bleeding, but he never died from loss of blood. And blood is a very, unpleasant smelling, but his wound smelled of roses. And because he was a contemporary stigmatist, he was photographed and all kinds of, the documents on him. And he kept journals, and because he knew that his life was, rare. And so this book that was sent to me by this Irish man, his aunt was one of the women, one of the staff members that did the interpretation of Pio's journals. And she wrote this because she said the stories about him are so phenomenal and so made up and incredible. She said, I had the privilege and the blessing of knowing him myself and observing things, his life, and just the way he was phenomenal enough. And so I'm going to just write down my recollections because I want to put the record straight. So here I am, interested in how forgiveness factors in to healing. And here comes this book. Now, I knew for years, I've known, I can't remember in my life when I haven't known who Padre Pio was because of my background and all this. So I always knew who Padre Pio was. And I knew, I remember when he died. So I always knew about him. But I knew nothing about him. And he, among the many gifts of the soul that he had. Now, remember what I just said. I said that on this side of the Rubicon, in this world, we keep our lives very ordinary, and we really do. We keep them ordinary by the narratives we tell ourselves, by how we organize our physical power, by what we tell ourselves is true and not true, can happen, cannot happen. When you cross the Rubicon and you get into the world of light, the world of life force, the world of the luminous, you get into this realm. One of Teresa of Avila's prayers, with God, all things are possible. Nothing's impossible. Now, here is the world of impossible. Nothing is impossible. This world calls it a miracle. This world, okay? This is the world where you have to turn down your mind and let your soul get in. Your soul that recognizes this world and the power of light, the power of love. It recognizes this world. It's comfortable in this world. It's comfortable. The mind, you know what's interesting? If you look at mystical literature, from whether you turn to the Judeo-Christian scriptures or Buddhism or any of the Bhagavad Gita, any of the scriptures, whenever someone has a mystical encounter, though they may not use that language, but it is, whenever they have an encounter, a direct visceral encounter with this world, it's always about seeing the light, and the light is blinding. This light is blinding. It's blinding and it's transforming. They're different. After that encounter with conscious light, in which there's a dialogue, Abraham had a dialogue with it. Moses had a dialogue at the burning bush, the light. Everything's different. Everything is different. That light is transforming because it is the life force. It is all created. It is the source of all. Here is this, in this play school, we're still screaming over, who gets the last donut, because that's the level of power. We love power. Over here, it's the power of love. And it's phenomenon. So, Pio, the mind doesn't get in here. It's another part, driven by faith, driven by anything's possible, driven by something greater than this. Okay? This is not our realm. This little place is. This belongs to the sacred. Okay. So, with that in mind, I was trying to understand forgiveness. And I know, because so many people, everybody struggles with, and I'm trying to understand the struggle with, and I get it. I get it at this level, because we are sticklers for justice and fairness and this idea that it shouldn't happen to us, and all that. And then Pio, I read his story. And this man was a complete channel for that life force, a complete channel for the power of love. That's all he did. He embodied it. There was nothing else in him. He so embodied it that he manifested the presence of Jesus within himself. He was that's what the stigmata was, that he was like an ally of Jesus. And he had experiences in which he would bilocate when someone needed to hear confession. He could speak any language at all that was required when he was hearing somebody in confession. So here is where I need to hit a pause button and explain something to you, because it is about you and it's about our design. Pio, for all of his gifts, for all of the way heaven came to his assistance by giving him the gift of tongues, by giving him an angel as a secretary, which, by the way, they did. I mean, he said that for him, his purpose in life was to hear confession, was to hear people's confessions. Now, I thought that blew me away. I thought, wow, why? And then he went on to describe what happens to a person when they come in and release from themselves. It wasn't It's not that a person goes through this humiliating, well, I didn't do this and I did this. It wasn't that. It was it was bigger than archetypal. It was the sacred breaking of a grip that darkness had over a person's willpower. That what Pio was able to do was release a person from the hold that darkness had on them. That a person would come into Pio and say, I know that I will lie tomorrow and I can't stop myself and I need help. You get me out of this. I can't break this cycle. I'm too weak, but I want out and I know it. And that's what Pio was able to do. He was able to release people from this fear that without darkness, they would not survive. Did you hear what I just said? He was able to release people from the dark, dark fear that without the skills of the dark, they would not be able to survive in life. Without being abusive, without being dishonest, without deception, without addiction, they would not be able to survive. And he was able to break the hold that darkness had on them with grace and prayer. That's what he did. And one after another would leave his confessional feeling as if they had been blasted with this life force, because they had. They felt illuminated. They felt as if life had begun again because of confession. Because what really had happened was he broke the cord of darkness. That's when this whole business of why is it so difficult for us to make this journey to the power of the light and let that come into our lives. Why is it so bloody difficult? Why would we continually choose war and pain and fear and the darkest part of ourselves when we could have the life force flowing through us abundantly, which in turn would bring blessings and healings and God knows what else to this world. And yet again and again, we go this way. And that's when I got it. The terror that we cannot live without the skills of the dark. That is a genuine terror. And what Pio said is, you need to ask for divine intervention to get you out of that cycle, to break that irrational, it's a dark, mystical thing, but it's real. But it's real. But it's real. And when I saw that, I realized that forgiveness was a true essential piece to healing. That in fact, our fear of being without the dark prevented all that light and its healing force and its phenomenal release mechanism from coming in to us and its transforming properties. And that the difference is, I think, we think we can control the dark, that we have some kind of authority over things. But there's a part of us that knows that we have no authority whatsoever over the light. Illness, health thrives on trust and on love and on hope and on light. I think what I have come to believe is there isn't anything that can't be healed. Obviously, there comes a time when we are all scheduled to leave the planet. But I absolutely believe that divine intervention and healing and the presence and the power of the life force is there at our to be asked for. But these two sides, how do I say? You have to have faith in one, but not both. Not both. So what I would ask you to do this evening is that to ask yourself, if we were together, I would break you into little groups. And the question I would have you reflect upon is it possible you have a fear of the light and a fear of how that force could change your life or could change you, and in what way? And on this side, are there skills of the dark that you actually rely upon? Now, if there's no such thing as a small act of love, there's no such thing as a small act of darkness. And so we can't dismiss things by saying it was like no big deal. It was like no big deal. Everything's a big deal. Every act of creation's a big deal. Every single act of creation is a great, big, huge, big deal. That I have learned. And so we have to really get that we are powerful beings and everything we do really matters. And so I will leave you with this note before I say a prayer. One of the reasons the mystics, it is the big reason, they finally would say, oh, I surrender. Honestly, this life, I surrender to you, was because they realized how powerful they were. And they thought, you have given me so much power with this life. I don't want to do anything dangerous, stupid, foolish. I surrender to you, to this light. You talk to me every day. You tell me, you make my arrangements, and I'll take it from there. And I will trust that however things unfold, all will be taken care of. How many people think that if they said that prayer, they would end up in poverty? And that's how the dark talks to you. You're not going to end up in poverty. Your soul will take over. Okay. Tomorrow we're going to go into miracles. We're going to go into the power of prayer, what it is to heal at a distance, what it is to all the things that light brings into your life. The wonder of it all. Okay. It's funny, I opened up this prayer. Which one? You know what? I'm going to stick with this one because I opened it up. How differently we suffer. When you set me on this path, Lord, I knew nothing about healing. Perhaps only you and I know the truth, that I wanted nothing to do with the world of ill and vulnerable people. I can't believe I cut this prayer tonight. Why you put me in the middle of the world was a mystery to me for years. I didn't want to be in this world. I asked you to grant me some insight, some reason why you gave me the skills to help people, but did not include the appetite to do the task. I felt conscripted into service, and you know that. But you also knew I would not turn away from knowledge, especially knowledge of the soul. How could I have lived so long and not known about its healing power? You put me on a path to discover everything I could not imagine, the interior map of who we are. And I've noticed something, Lord, something subtle, but oh so powerful. The way people are suffering has deepened through the years. I believe that humans' inner suffering has become a pathway into a person's soul. Human suffering is no longer only the result of loss or loneliness, tragedy, or physical pain, though those remain ever present. No, suffering has gone deeper, reaching into the caverns of the soul. You lead a person into the inner sanctum through prayer once they've made the choice to finally confront truth. The suffering I'm witnessing is both emotional and mystical, personal and impersonal. I see it in the eyes of people in their inability to name the reason they feel so imprisoned in their depression. This is the suffering of our collective transformation, a soul pain shared. It is untreatable, but not unreachable. I know that, Lord. You are weaving us together, like it or not. If we cannot consciously embrace our oneness, we will bleed ourselves together. It is astonishing how we prefer to suffer apart rather than love together. But the sufferings we are enduring today have one thing in common. They are a result of feeling separate from the whole. Whether we are enduring depression, loss, or survival level fear, this feeling of separation now envelops so many of us. I know aloneness is your way of beckoning us to meet you in prayer, to inevitably find you. In the breakdown will come a breakthrough. Soon, very soon, a calm will arrive. Fortitude will drop in like manna from heaven, assuring us we will somehow endure. Inevitably, we will wonder about the source of that sudden calmness so needed in that exact moment. And we will consider, perhaps for the first time, the mystical truth that we are so carefully watched over, even in the midst of the darkest passages of the human journey. Thank you, everyone. I'll see you tomorrow for our last session.